talking about politics, Labor government is still trying to work out a carve-out deal on the US steel and aluminium tariffs. This is going to take quite a while. It's not going to happen quickly. Tariffs not due in for another month. The Prime Minister is being urged to rule out implementing a carbon border tariff. Now, a preliminary recommendation from a review into carbon leakage. This was launched in 2023. It's a little complicated. But for more on this, I'm joined by environment editor of the Australian, Graham Lloyd. Graham, great to see you again. What is a carbon leakage package and how might it impact on this argument we're now having with the Americans on tariffs?
Well, good evening, Steve. Look, it's something that only the Europeans could think of. When we look at tariffs, really the thing that's been hanging over us for the past few years has been the potential for Europe to impose a carbon penalty for countries that don't have climate policies as strong as theirs. Of course, that's been overtaken by President Trump has got a broad trade war going on. But in effect, a carbon tariff is there to protect industries that have to spend money to reduce their emissions and not be penalised by countries that don't have the same sort of policies. So the danger in things like the safeguard mechanism and what have you that the federal government has introduced is that it increases costs for local producers and then others in China and elsewhere that don't have those costs can just swan in and take their market. The European approach is to tax it. So it makes everything equal. But of course, this is just a bureaucratic nightmare. And Australia really needs to be on the side of free trade and no tariffs.
This smelly thing's been hanging around since 2023. Our old mate Chris Bowen has sort of seems to have put it aside or put it at the bottom of a drawer. But it does sit there. I mean, is there any country that we import from that... I mean, we wouldn't be able to buy anything from China without putting a tariff on it, would we? Because they're not doing what the European countries are doing or what the standard that we would demand.
That's right, and the sort of the prism through which we've seen it is, well, we won't get access to European markets if we don't do something that pleases them. And then on the other side, well, we're going to cop it from elsewhere. So it's a bit of a mess. And the fact that there has been no final report or consideration of this, I think suggests how tricky it is for the government to consider and implement. It's still going to be copping lobbying from the big trade exposed industries, that's steel, that's aluminium, that are facing penalties in the US now. And I think it's the taxpayer that's going to end up out of pocket and eventually the industries will probably pack up.
I think, Graham, you and I smell that the worm's sort of turning on all of this green energy stuff. I note this outfit, the Clean Energy Council, they've been talking up the fact that there's $9 billion worth of renewable projects were green-lit for construction. But if you dig a little deeper there, we actually find out that the capacity is still running well behind on what's needed to get to that target of 2030. We're never going to get to the target, are we?
Well, it doesn't look like it, Steve. I think you look at today's announcement and they're making a big deal of the fact that a large number of projects reached a commitment in the last period. But before that, there was a drought, an extended drought. So effectively, we have to have that level of projects approved every month or every quarter for the going into the future. And that's just not going to happen. I think, as you have indicated, the worm is turning. We're seeing the big investors in superannuation funds, Macquarie Bank and others, they're really taking a close look at their exposure to this sector and they're closing their wallets. They can see what's happening in the US and I think it's not going to please the government's ambitions when it comes to meeting climate targets.
Graham, great to catch up. Thank you very much, mate.